Hey guys, welcome back. It's Benjamin at Gas & Motorcycle Works. We are going to be today making a clutch cable for a Honda Shadow. You take a look at this. These are the ends for the cable ends, different fittings that are required to be able to do this. And then you look down here on the floor, you'll see some cable housing. This is the cable. This is flux-filled solder that we use at the ends. We'll put on the ends. I'll add some ends to here and show you how those are made. This is something called a bird cage tool, which actually makes it so that that cable doesn't slip out of the end that we're going to be installing on the end of the cable. So come along, check it out. We'll show you something pretty cool. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to determine the length of our housing. So give us a minute over here. This is our cable housing. We're going to be fitting this to this end piece, which we took from the original cable housing. It's going to feed through here just like it does from the factory and go up out this hole here and become this cable for this bike. Squish this into here, hopefully. I'll get it at least close. We may have to cut the rubber off of the outside of this cable housing, but this will at least help us to establish the length that we need. So now that we have that connected on the right side of the engine, where the cable housing ends, we're going to come up to the clutch lever and attach it to this adjusting barrel here on the lever. So that will sit right there. So the angle cutters will cut this cable housing to length. You want to have a little bit of slack in here so that it looks nice. We could potentially run this over, actually under, sorry. I'll get this out in a second. And over this headlight bucket, since we have a choice here. And it'll make it a pretty line following the handlebar, which is always a nice thing to have. So this gets to be a prettier line, a smoother arc, which I like, and a prettier line. So this goes like this. This is about our length. We're gonna cut this housing just like that. Once you cut your housing, if you take a look here, you'll see that this end is kind of nasty. So what I like to do is put it on a belt sander and just make it so that that is a nice flat finish. So that's much better than it was before. Do this, I like to push back there's a liner on the inside of this housing, and we don't want that to bind at all. So I'll push that back a little bit. This is clean enough on the rubber part to fit into there. I think we have some ferrules that'll go on the end of that. So I'm gonna do the other side. Same thing. Piece of plastic that lines this is all folded over. The cable will bind on that and won't push through it. So I push through it with a piece of metal. This is an old spoke. You can see the spoke nipple. And I just use that to open up that hole and make it nice and happy. Okay, so what we're trying to do is get this to fit into here, about that depth. The vinyl that's on the outside of this spring, which is the cable housing, is not allowing it to fit in there nicely. So we'll cut this off and remove this vinyl, exposing the spring, and this will now fit in there beautifully, like that, one end. So we're gonna refit these onto here now that we have our ends of this housing set up. So this goes in here, sits like that. We'll run this over here, like that. Back up here. On the other side of that, over and around to that. What we're going to do is make something called a bird cage. And it's going to we're going to take this housing and smash it so it becomes like a basket at the end. And we do that with this incredible tool that is here. And you will see just how amazing this thing is. And this is how you make cables. So we push this thing up to about that height, squash it in a vise, and then smash it, and it'll get all wide and be beautiful for us. That goes in there. Watch how this happens. It's pretty amazing. Super, super simple, but absolutely incredible. So after smashing it, open it from the vise, drop those on the floor, and take a look at that. This on its own won't actually perform the job that we're looking to do. So what we have to do is we have to get some solder on here to make this so that it's actually a solid piece. I have a little cauldron here for my witch's brew of solder. We'll heat that up. First I want to get some flux. Okay, so we're going to heat the solder. And once that liquefies, we'll dip our cable into the flux. Okay, so we now have some liquid solder. Dunk this into the end here. Get that all coated in this stuff good. Drop that into there. Get some solder to stick to it. And it's a big solder ball. Isn't that cool? We'll let that cool off, take it over to the grinder a little bit, clean it up, make it pretty, and then we'll have an end for a cable. So with that, we've got our cleaned up end. We still need this fitting on here. So we're gonna run this fitting onto the cable. Bring that up there. That sits like that. So we're gonna test fit this, easy for me to say, into our line. Hopefully that'll go right in like that. Run that up the flagpole to the clutch lever. Seems to be working okay. Take this out, let that go in more. Look at that, pushes right out. We need the cable end to look like this to fit into the little slot that is here at our clutch activation point. Right there, goes like that. So right now is an excellent time to grease this cable. So we're gonna run just a little bit of grease on it, make it so that it is a happy cable. Get a little bit of that on there, slide that in. You wanna keep that grease off of the end of the housing, of the cable, because if you get grease all over the end, the solder will have a hard time sticking to it. So now what we wanna do is determine the end of this cable. So we're gonna fit that into there and fit that there. So what we need to do is make it that the cable ends here, but we need a little bit of extra to be able to do the flare, right? So we're gonna come to here, let that flare. I did a little bit too much. I'm trying to put tension as well onto the cable so that it's at this correct point, so we don't have to use the adjusting barrels to make it that it's right. So we're gonna cut this right here. Just like so. And now we need to put the end that has the barrel that will fit into this underneath here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna make a bird cage, little basket piece that's gonna fit into this hole. What we're doing now is making a basket for the clutch lever end. And if you look here, I don't know if you can see this, it's kind of small. We have an option. We can make this thing stick way up, which makes a great big basket, or we can let it go inside. Go a little bit further down, it makes a smaller basket, which is what we want because it needs to fit into a smaller fitting. And we'll use a smaller one of these. You'll see here that we have 3 of these, which gives us different options for the size. We use this one for the first one. We might use that one. We're gonna try this one and see how it goes. Cross your fingers. And that makes a little nice bird cage that will fit into that little hole there. I'm not going to pull it tight because I don't want to try and pull it off, but what I'll do is I'll again saturate this with solder, and then we'll grind it a little bit and it'll fit in there perfectly and just completely disappear, and it'll be a perfect cable for our clutch. Looks good to me. This all goes in here nicely and fits beautifully and does exactly what we want it to do. Put that there. This goes on here. Like that. This sits down in that little hook. This goes here. Ta-da. Back there, just turn it on the other side here. It goes into that. Here's a kind of cool trick. Nobody's seen this one. Pull the lever back, it stretches the cable, snap, and it goes in. Just like that. And look at that. Almost perfect cable adjustment. We'll make a little adjustment down at the bottom. Right here. That'll do it. Not quite as much free play as I like. We don't want the cable to have so much tension on it that it drags clutch. So you want to have a little bit of free play in there. Like that. This needs to be tightened. Maybe a little less. And this can be adjusted on the fly to your preference. But there it is. Just like that. Another fantastic tip. I think. I don't know if you guys like the shit I'm doing for you, but if you do like it, subscribe, tell your friends, and thanks for taking the time to look at what we do.